Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. Hope you and yours are well. Last few weeks I've been saying it's been a hell of a week. Guess what? It's been a hell of a week. We've got lots and lots and lots to talk about, my fellow extremists. And so let's get the show on the road. Let's bring in the troops. We've got our favourite lawyer, of course, never lets us down. There she is. Eva, how are you, my friend?
Oh, doing well, Roddy, thank you. I have to say, Alva is looking spectacular today. The view up to the hills behind my house is just amazing, and it reminds me that I'm going to take great advantage and do yet another plug for the famous Alva Games, the Highland Games in Alva, second Saturday in July every year, 13th of July this year, and I hope to see a lot of Prism viewers there. Thank you.
Well, we look that. Remember, Techie, we're going to have to put a wee banner up there sometime before then. Give our Eva Alva a wee plug. Neither the time. And over there in Edinburgh, where he'll be wanting to give the big talk about the festival and the tattoo and all that. Here he comes. It's Lloyd Quinnan. How you doing, my friend?
Just fine. The weather's great. The posh kids are out playing cricket, so Edinburgh is Edinburgh as usual.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And we have no Mr. Boswell tonight. His plane, we think, has been delayed in a bar near Brussels town centre or something. We really don't know. He's failed to make it, but no, seriously, we think his plane's been delayed. He may join us. We don't know. Hopefully he will, if not. But don't worry. We have, for your delight, we have the man who's heading up the Not My Parliament in the Dundee region. It's our Alan Petrie. Mr. Petrie, good evening. How are you?
Hi, Roddy. I'm doing well. Me and Annie were way up to Institute today being radical extremists by delivering a few leaflets for independence for Sally Hughes.
You can't even beat being a radical independence extremist. Can you whack it? I'm one. I'm definitely radical. But while you're here, Alan, last time you were on, you had sent a letter to Mr. Speaker asking for a Republican oath under the Equalities Act of 2010. Did you ever get a reply?
Funny enough, I just got a reply this week, and it was saying that he has noted the contents and I should contact my local MP to take up the issue. What was interesting was he didn't say it was wrong. Now, if what I was saying was nonsense, that would be in the first line of that letter saying, no, you are wrong, we are complying with the legislation. So I have, with that answer, also sent a letter to the Scottish Parliament presiding officer asking her to do exactly the same thing. I've also sent the letter to the leader of the House, the shadow leaders of the House, the leaders of all the smaller parties, and the independents, asking them to take this forward. And it's in the Scottish Parliament.
Well done, Mr. Petrie. We're going to try and get a Republican oath, folks, so we don't have to see our people swearing an oath to the King of England, which they shouldn't be doing anyway, but that's another story for another day. But, as I said, Eva, we're extremists. Let's say, Techie, stick up our wee Rishi, the wee battle. Stick up his nonsense.
I feel a profound sense of urgency because more will change in the next 5 years than in the last 30. I'm convinced that the next few years will be some of the most dangerous, yet the most transformational that our country has ever known. So the question we face today is this: who has the clear plan and bold ideas to deliver a secure future for you and your family? From gender activists hijacking children's sex education to cancel culture, vocal and aggressive fringe groups are trying to impose their views on the rest of us. They're trying to make it morally unacceptable to believe something different and undermine people's confidence and pride in our own history and identity. Scottish nationalists are even trying to tear our United Kingdom apart.
There you go. Trying to tear. We're extremists, Eva. Are you proud? You're proud to be one?
I'm thrilled. One of the nicest names I've ever been called. I'm pleased to see that the influence of the great John Maclean sitting there behind Alan has had an impact on him as it did on the rest of us. So thanks again to Indie Knitter for that. I really wonder about Rishi Sunak's motivation at times. He spoke there about history and identity. I know Scottish history and I know what my Scottish identity is. And it is in part because I do know Scottish history that I am an extreme independentista, and I will continue to be until the day I die. But I have absolutely no intention of dying as a subject of the United Kingdom. I intend to live my grey years as an independent citizen of an independent Republic of Scotland. And if that makes me extreme, then I will be extreme for the rest of my days until I see independence attained. Alex Salmond the other night on Question Time was asked about these comments made by Rishi Sunak, and he pointed out that in the whole history of the peaceful Scottish independence movement of the last 90 odd years or so, there has never been as much as a nosebleed incurred as the result of our fight for self-determination and for the return to Scotland of being an independent country, a return to normality. So the person with the extreme views that thinks that self-determination is somehow inappropriate is actually the fellow who is ignoring the history and the identity of the people of Scotland. He's the extremist, not me. I'm one of the normal guys in the room.
Yeah, actually, if I think there was one broken arm. It was a unionist that did it to a Scottish independence pensioner in the violent city of Edinburgh. Never happened in Glasgow, but it happened in that violent city of Edinburgh, Lloyd. But when he went on in his speech, it's too long to go into his complete load of drivel, but he was lining up the Scottish independence supporters with Russia, North Korea, Iran, all the hate figures that the Western globalists have. Quite extraordinary, the leader who's trying to keep us, what happened to all that love they were sending us in 2014? It's kind of gone the other way now, hasn't it?
I don't think we can expect anything else from what is clearly an English nationalist Prime Minister. This man, I think, for the sake of being accepted by the society that he was born into, he's had to assume the same characteristics and attitudes of the people of the same class as him. And what I mean by that is the very well cosseted public schoolboy that he is, much like his predecessors, all of them public schoolboys, all of them taught in their schools that the jocks, the micks and the taffs are a lower breed of people, and indeed working class English people are a lower breed as well. It's not a surprise to me that he comes out with this stuff. I mean, he makes mistakes all the time. Most British Prime Ministers who have been complete racists, like Winston Churchill, for instance, have done very well at covering up their racism towards the people of Scotland. But in the reality, Rishi let the mask slip. And what annoys me about his comments is that we've had no real reaction from either the First Minister of our country or any of the so-called pro-independence campaigners who are peripheral to the Scottish National Party. And I think that that's a product of the fact that for years and years and years, to be good little children in the British political establishment, the Scottish National Party has taken on the mantle of accepting the accusation that to be a supporter of independence in Scotland, there's a tad hint of racism about you. Now, we've spent so long trying not to upset the English, not being called racist. We've made fools of ourselves and continue to make fools of ourselves. I've spent quite a lot of time in Wales over the past few years, partly because of family connections. Now, in Wales, they have a very straightforward attitude. They know that the English are racist towards them, so it's a commonly accepted concept. In Ireland, they're perfectly well aware that the English are racist towards them, so they're aware of it and they behave accordingly. I mean, one of my favourite tea towels I have is one that I got in Cardiff a couple of years ago, which on it says, "Welcome to Wales, sorry about the neighbours," and has a picture of England on it. Now, that's available in all tourist shops right across the nation of Wales. If you were to suggest that we put the same thing into shops in Edinburgh, I think the current leader of the Scottish National Party and maybe some of his cabinet ministers would be up in arms. at this expression of racism towards our lovely neighbours who plunder 82% or 92% of our natural resources on a yearly basis and leave us in penury, and are suggesting that at some point in the future we should, as an oil-producing nation, have no refinery whatsoever, but we'll replace the refinery in a country with more renewables than anywhere else with nuclear power. The English are racist. That's a fact. Their politicians specifically are even more so. They just temper it slightly until they get a bit angry. But the whole idea that a Prime Minister of Great Britain could effectively call 5.5 to 6 million people who are citizens of the country he claims to lead are extremists in any way whatsoever is utter and completely reprehensible. And the fact that the SNP did not get an apology should have required them to leave the chamber immediately. Absolutely. And the fact that they didn't do that shows you how utterly spineless. It was clear in question time, but I'm sorry, Stephen Flynn, you are spineless.
Absolutely, hear you there. So here's the thing, Alan. If it had been Alex Salmond or Stephen Flynn or any of them who had turned round and said something, you know, the English are extremists, can you imagine the outcry? Alan knows me
myself bound. Yeah, I mean, it's the usual hypocrisy for them. But I mean, Richie Sunak calling Scottish nationalists extremists is like Mussolini calling the Dalai Lama a fascist. I mean, Sunak is the man who's trying to take money out of the hands of disabled people and give them vouchers so as they've not got a proper life to live. It's Richie Sunak who's sending people to Rwanda because they're fleeing countries that we're helping to bomb. It's ridiculous. I mean, also, Richie Sunak is the man who is helping a rogue nation commit genocide. That's extremists. Richie Sunak is the extremists. We are the people. And we say yes. Canon Kenyon Wright made those words. That's not extreme. That's just fact. And we will be making that happen very soon.
No, I can't say we are the people. The viewers will take it the wrong way if I say that. Especially after what happened this week. Change the subject quickly, Roddy, change the subject. But Eva, it's just a continuation of the treating us like some piece of shit that stood on in the street. And what I don't understand is how any self-respecting Scot, when they listen to Sunak saying that we're extremists, or they hear Keir Starmer or his little penguin in Edinburgh South saying, well, it doesn't matter how you're never going to get a referendum or anything from us. You'll just get back in your box and shut up, Jock. I need someone to explain to me how any self-respecting Scot can accept that.
Well, I think the issue for me is, as we've said so many times before, the Scots elected MPs to go to Westminster to negotiate an independence settlement. And instead, what we got were dozens of SNP MPs who simply settled down, who don't stand up for Scotland and don't remember that independence is the raison d'etre until there's a general election on the horizon. Now, I was interested today to see that there's a list of half a dozen tasks being issued by Keir Starmer that are the first 6 jobs that he's going to address, or his first 6 priorities. And I think it's number 3 says that he's not going to allow a Scottish independence referendum. And the person who had shared that on Twitter that drew it to my attention was Angus Brendan McNeill, because he went on to say, look, there it is. How many times do you have to be told there ain't going to be a Section 30? It won't happen. The way that we get to vote for independence is stop wasting time. Let's collapse Holyrood, do Plan B, which has become Plan A, and have a Holyrood election run as a de facto referendum. That's what people who consider themselves elected to promote and protect the interests of Scotland and the interests of the Scottish people, and who promote independence as a natural, normal state, should be doing. You know, John Swinney should be on the phone just now to Angus Brendan McNeill to negotiate how they do that. They should be talking in terms of setting up a convention, etc., as we've said countless times before. What they ought not to be doing is to be listening to guff from Rishi Sunak or Alistair Jack or whoever about how they're going to continue to, in effect, bleed Scotland dry, remove as much of our revenue as possible, give us back as little as they can, and ensure a position where devolution has come to the end of the road, where Scotland is in some large respects on its knees, where we've got arguments this week about whether school meals debt can be cleared in part or in full, how long it will take to do that, whether universal free school meals is a goer or not. We're talking here about feeding children, removing debt from families who can't afford to pay it, when Scotland is a wealthy, wealthy country who would be able to feed everybody in the country and have plenty of money left over had we the control of our own resources. So we need politicians with backbones, not the dross and the naysayers and, quite frankly, the yellow-bellied cowards that we've been represented by in the main, certainly since at least 2019. You know, my own MP, John Nicholson, what's his priority this week? It's not the 25 to 40% of kids in Clackmannanshire that are hungry. It's not drug deaths in Clackmannanshire. It's not alcoholism in Clackmannanshire. It's not a housing and homeless problem in Clackmannanshire. He's whining and complaining about somebody that gave evidence at a committee in respect of media and culture in Westminster. What damn difference does that make to the folk of Ochil and South Perthshire, or the people of Clackmannanshire, Alloa, Grangemouth, etc.? They want to know, how are they going to be housed? How are they going to be able to pay their gas and electricity bill? How are they going to put food on the table? Where are they getting a job? Are their kids going to get properly educated? These bread and butter issues are the priorities of the people of this country. And the SNP better take a long, hard look at themselves, because they've let people of Scotland down once too often.
Correct. This week as well, it was announced, Lloyd, our Union Jack, Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for England, who made a statement that he has instructed the House of Lords he wants the House of Lords to take over scrutinising Holyrood legislation, and he also wants to put nuclear power stations into Scotland, as well as a nuclear waste dump for all the nuclear waste that will be down at these new mini reactors that they're hoping to build throughout England. Now, we don't need any nuclear power, but they want us to have one so that they can feed it to England. Again, we're not a colony, Lloyd. Absolutely, we're not a colony.
Oh, well, Alistair Jack is the colonial governor.
Absolutely.
You know, the only big difference between us and the other colonies is that we don't. He doesn't have an official residence in Edinburgh, like the Governor General of the Basque Country has an official residence in Bilbao and has an official residence in Barcelona. So that's the only thing we're missing. Except, of course, and this is probably unknown to many people, Alistair Jack could actually occupy the Palace of Holyrood House if he chose, when the Queen's not there, because as the Secretary of State for Scotland, he has that privilege. But he's got a big enough house as it is. The problem with Alistair Jack is that he, like his pal Rishi Sunak, they grew up in the private school system. They have inbuilt attitudes based on class and based on privilege. And Alistair Jack is fully paid up member of the British Posh Boys Club, and understands that here in Scotland, the place he was born and bred, is in fact an imperial adjunct of the great state that is in actual fact England. Alistair Jack's concept of new nuclear power in Scotland is one of the most illogical things I've ever heard of. Nuclear power stations cost an extraordinary amount of money. In the long run, they are not cost effective, primarily because of the waste, but nobody wants to talk about the waste. And the issue of waste was brought to the attention of the British government some 25 years ago by the International Atomic Energy Authority, who pointed out to them that they do not have sufficient waste containment. They do not have and will not have the ability to continue to take waste into containment because of the geology of the country. Now, geology is not something you can change. Man-made things don't work. In the end, when you're keeping waste for upwards of 1,000 years, which is what's required with most of the nuclear waste, then where do you put it? Where can you guarantee there will not be earthquakes? We've had 3 earthquakes in Scotland in the past 3 years. Where will you put it when we have coastal erosion at the levels that we have at the moment? Now, all of these things don't seem to enter into the minds of the likes of Alistair Jack. But like this new breed of Tories, they don't give a damn because they won't be here to see it. And their whole approach to politics is, we'll do what we want to do for us today. It's the living for today attitude that does not recognise the need for future planning, for what they see as something which will solve an initial problem, or the problem they're solving, as you referred to, Roddy, is this. Scotland is to be plundered for its electricity. What we are to be also is we're going to be the base load for England. And the waste is going to come to us. The waste from the new nuclear power station, either on Anglesey, the ones in Norfolk, all of that waste is going to come north because that's their plan. Now, if our government is complicit in that, they are effectively condemning the future generations to have to live with the most poisonous materials known to man in circumstances which we cannot predict what will happen to the geology of our country. The use of nuclear power stations, the use of nuclear outside of medicine is utter and complete folly, because you cannot control when waste goes wrong. You cannot control it. If there's a fire, you cannot control it, as we found out when the nuclear power station at Chernobyl exploded in the mid-80s, and that farms here in Scotland, more than 3,000 miles or 2,500 miles away from where that nuclear power station, were not allowed to transfer their animals, their goods, or their crops for nearly 5 years because our ground became infected.
Yeah.
This is insanity. Anyone who accepts, and I think I said this in a programme the other day, about the use of nuclear in any form is coming back onto the agenda in a way that I, for one, cannot understand, as we've been over this ground before. Nuclear weapons will destroy the planet. Nuclear waste will destroy the human race. We must not allow it to happen. And we need a government, a Scottish government, that stands up for both the people of the country and for the natural beauty of our country, which could be destroyed simply with one small human error.
Correct. I don't want to be pedantic, but the Queen's dead, Lloyd.
Oh, God.
But here's the other thing, just as Lloyd alluded to, Alan, one of the other things we're in this programme oppose is the free ports. And the free ports will allow people like the part owner of Manchester United to do, he's been wanting to do, the part owner of Grangemouth, is to frack. Now, fracking can cause earthquakes. Earthquakes could release the nuclear waste. They're making sure it's not happening in England, don't they? It's a pound, Alan.
They always do. I mean, Scotland takes the risks. Scotland takes the crap. Westminster takes the money. Always the same. I mean, we've got to start learning that unless we stand up to Westminster itself, not political parties, because they're all the bloody same. Labour, Tories, Liberals, they're all unionists and they're all the same. SNP, Greens cannot protect us. So there's only one way that we could get away from them, and that is by either voting for independence or saying to the Parliament, we're sacking you. You are not our Parliament, and we are not playing by your games anymore. I mean, I'm getting sick and tired of Scotland being the dumping ground for everything. And for free ports, I mean, that is it. Talking about extremities, that is extreme. I mean, you're giving billionaires billions of pounds. You're telling workers you'll work for less money than what everybody else outside the free ports will work for. Your health and safety is going to be non-existent. We're just going to do with you what we want to do with you. And what makes me extremely angry is today the Alba Party announced Mr. Freeport's himself as a candidate for the general election. That shouldn't be happening. I mean, the two individuals who wrote the Alba policy on Freeport is no longer members of the party. And immediately a man who's been in the party for less than 6 months has now got a seat to standing for the council elections, for the Westminster elections. And it's ridiculous. But I think on the other message that we should be doing is making it quite clear to Alistair Jack, you're not welcome here. And the Scottish Government could do that by changing the name of the street that his office is on to Vichy Street. We did it when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned in Glasgow. They changed the name to Mandela. And the South African government had to put that name on every single piece of literature they had. So we put Vichy Street on, and every single piece of literature they send out or get back will have that word onto it. And that will get the message out internationally.
Now, talking of Freeports, this week up in Ardeshire, John Swinney and Mary McCallan were up there extolling the virtues of I've got to get the name right, the Sumato Electronics Company of Japan, who are making allegedly a £300 million investment to run cables taking Scottish electricity down to England.
Very good. No, very good. I've spoken before about my dad working in engineering in Scotland from the 70s onwards. And my dad worked at Nigg, he worked at Ardeshir, he worked at Kishhorn, he worked at Cromarty, he worked at Grangemouth. He was all over the big plants. He worked in construction of various different types because he was a crane hire manager. And my dad would be burling in his grave if he saw what was happening in Scotland today, because the revenue, the endowment, the profit from these escapades in these green freeports will not find its way into the pockets of the people of Scotland. The numbers of jobs that are being promised are overinflated. They won't be delivered. There will be foreign people come here to work. There will be foreign investment, and there will be dividends paid to foreign countries. Mm-hmm. The dividends should be coming to the people of Scotland, and that is why we need our independence, and we need dreadfully, urgently, because Alan's just used the word Vichy. I would use the word Vichy actually towards John Swinney and Mary McCallan for their efforts in the recent past in respect of the Green Freeports performance. It is known that councillors in the Freeports area, which in the case of the fourth Freeport includes vast swathes of Edinburgh, Fife, Grangemouth, etc., councillors there have no idea what a Green Freeport involves. The Freeport meeting that Salvo arranged in Dunfermline that I attended was attended by, I think, a Tory councillor from Fife Council who knew nothing about Freeports when he arrived, but knew a hell of a lot more when he left. The same position applies to other councillors in Fife and councillors in the north of Scotland. They don't know what they're dealing with because for some reason, neither the Scottish Government nor the Westminster Government are providing detailed information either to elected members or to the general public. It's because it's a scam, because the profits that are being made are not profits for the benefit of the people of Scotland. We saw the debacle of the reverse wind auction, which I think has either been or is about to be repeated again, where money that could have been raised for the good of Scotland was squandered. We've watched as the SNP have been absolutely powerless and completely disinterested in respect of Grangemouth and its threatened closure of the refinery there. And what we're seeing day in and day out are press releases by the clowns that are governing Scotland just now who have lost sight of their objective. The objective is to make Scotland a better place for the people who choose to live and work here, who choose to have their families here, who want to contribute to Scottish society. And it is not for the betterment of those people that John Swinney and Mary McCallan and Kate Forbes and all the rest of them are currently working, because all they're doing is sending the money and the revenue either south or beyond these shores. So our country's independence must happen, and we're going to have to take it. We're going to have to grab it and run with both hands. We're not going to get it if we rely on the SNP, because they have shown themselves signally incapable of taking any sensible decisions for the sake of the people of this country or the Scottish economy.
Yeah, it is quite a disgrace, Lloyd. the fact that the leader of the Independence Party, the SNP, and one of his cabinet ministers are up there lauding that there's a company there going to be running cables to steal our energy for no return. I mean, let's say we get 100 jobs out of it, 1,000 jobs, and their taxes will go to London. When they buy a packet of cigarettes, their taxes will go to London. It is quite shameful that the leader of the Independence Party is extolling the virtues of a centre and a company that's stealing our resources.
Yeah. I find it shocking that the Scottish National Party appears to have no concept of a future Scottish exchequer, that they're happily rubber stamping the removal of our economic backbone when they should be actually working on things where they see that the end result is it gives them more money in their budgets to address the many, many social and infrastructure problems that we have in this country. But they appear not to think in that way whatsoever. Now, I say this week in and week out, and that's to do with the fact that up until now, I've not seen any core values. But now that John Swinney is in charge, Mary McCallan is still around, Kate Forbes, I am beginning to see core values. And those are the core values shared with the Penny Mordants of this world. They're showing themselves clearly to have the core values, certainly in economic terms, of the Conservative and Unionist Party in every way. What I do not understand is how they can have conversations with themselves and genuinely believe that they're doing something which is expanding our economy, when in actual fact what it's doing is crushing our economy, squeezing our economy smaller and smaller and smaller. Because when you look at the Freeport areas, the fact that Ardeshir, it will be within the Freeport area, in the Murray Freeport, the fact that in the fourth Freeport, you have 98% of the city of Edinburgh, including its airport. You have the Rosyth dockyard and its, 11 rotting nuclear Hulk submarines. You have the most modern gas cracking plant. You have the Grangemouth refinery and plastics manufacturer. All of this are the primary kind of functions of our economy. These are the kind of base load of our economy comes from all of those elements. And they're simply handing them over without any discussion whatsoever. All the discussion we ever get is about the jobs. And this convinces me and tells me very clearly, that's the story that they want to be told. That's the story they're telling the councillors. It's all going to be about, I mean, even the extremely nice man that he is, Douglas Chapman, in most of his statements, all he talks about is the high quality jobs. Now, there's absolutely no evidence from any place in the world that high quality jobs operate within freeports, unless what you're going to do is you're going to have manufacturing within the freeport of goods, services, or issues that cannot be done out with the freeport because of issues like health and safety, environmental regulation. So, as we always say, the freeports are a big, big issue. But the tragedy is the leaders of the Scottish National Party, the leaders of our current government, are not being honest, I would suggest, either with themselves or with the public. And we need them to be honest about this.
Talking about honesty, Alan, another cracker this week. The Green Party, Techie, can you stick it up? They expelled 13 of their members for the ridiculous thing. These members said that sex is a biological reality. And apparently that was a bridge too far for wee Paddy and Big Lorna. It's quite ridiculous that people are getting expelled for telling the truth and telling a scientific fact, Alan.
Well, the Greens in reality haven't been a match made in heaven for a long time. I mean, my God, watching them, you think Screaming Lord Such has made a comeback for the grave because they are acting worse than the raving lunatic party. I mean, could you imagine one of these people coming around to your door canvassing you? They'd be going, "What the hell? Where's the circus?" I mean, they're just mad, but they're mad in a dangerous way. That's what makes it so frightening, because they are trying to manipulate our children. That's the ones who should be getting expelled, not the 13 who were realistic, and not the policy of green, which seemed to have been expelled a long time ago, because they've never talked about green issues. It's always the identity issues that they talk about. And people of Scotland are sick and tired of it. They caught into the coattails of the SNP at the last election just to get these people elected. And they have done nothing but bring the SNP down since that happened. And the SNP have got to waken up and really break all connections with the Green Party, because they are a danger to that party as well as independents.
Yeah. And remember that, folks, in 2026, when you go for your second vote, don't give it to them. You should be voting for Indies for independence anyway. That's the way to go. Eva, as someone who all their life has been fighting for equalities and who has been following closely all the woke stuff in the GRA and trans, what did you think when you heard that 13 members of a political party had been expelled for daring to say that sex is a biological reality?
It confirmed to me that the lunatics have taken over the asylum. It was information that came to me at the same time as the guidance that's written for the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration. That's the organisation that runs children's panels. And children's panels, which viewers will know, are held to look into the arrangements for children who might need some form of care and protection provided by the state. So it turns out that there is internal guidance for staff that work with SCRA, that Children's Panels organisation. This internal guidance does not feature on the public-facing part of SCRA's website, but I've got a copy of it, and it actually almost puts the Greens and their shenanigans to shame. It was drafted a couple of years ago, and it's a kind of do's and don't, if you like, in terms of the language to be used. And language that you have to avoid saying includes the words both genders or opposite sexes. Instead, you have to refer to all genders. And the reason for this is, if you say both sexes, this implies that there are only two. Okay, that's Scottish Children Reporter Administration advice, that you've not to suggest there are only two sexes. Another part of the guidance says that you've not to use the phrase born female or born male. You've to use the phrase assigned female or male at birth. And the reason for that is because people can transition, and bodied language is interpreted as pressure to medically transition in terms of validation of one's gender identity. This is an organisation looking after vulnerable children. And finally, the footnote in this guidance confirms that advice was taken from Stonewall. So in the face of the Cass review, might I suggest to those who run the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration and to those ministers in the Scottish Government, including the First Minister, that their guidance is outdated, it should be binned forthwith, and somebody who understands about sex, about the need to not socially transition children, and instead look at their position holistically, become a priority for this government, rather than funding those who will write fiction, which is in fact positively dangerous.
Yeah, Lloyd, you have a daughter, and I know that you love the Green Party. I think they're a great addition to the Scottish political scene. What did you make of all this nonsense?
I find it's the natural place they're going to end up. They have become the most authoritarian political organisation, and I say political with my tongue firmly in my cheek. They've become the most authoritarian party, certainly in Scotland. They brook no challenge whatsoever. But the thing that's most extraordinary about it is they've bet the whole thing on reducing themselves right down to just the people who are prepared to go along with men can be women and women can be men. This is where they've placed themselves, and in some ways it's somewhat reminiscent of what happened to the Green Party in Germany. When the Greens in Germany discovered that their entire leadership of the Green Party were either working for the Soviet Union, for the German security services, the American security services, and various other bods. That Green Party now believes that the possession of nuclear weapons in Germany, the use of nuclear power in Germany, is a good thing. The Greens have been bought and sold across Europe. Of that, there's no question. I mean, I find extraordinary is that our Green Party seems to believe that they are the complete kind of the paragons of knowledge. They are the ones who hold all the answers to the future. And if anyone ever says, but, or I've got a question, then you're to be rooted out. I mean, it's a new Puritanism. It's extraordinary. As I do, I'm reading a bizarre book about the Scottish English civil wars, right, during Cromwell's time. And so much of the background to what goes on in that is these little sects of Puritans, both on the Royalist side and on the Cromwellian side, who absolutely demand that everybody believe exactly what they believe. And if you don't believe it, you're instantly cast out. Which leads us to, is Patrick Harvey a reincarnation of John Knox? He's about the same height. Now, that might sound strange and bizarre, but the reality is Knox's reformation was based on you either believe or you're the enemy. And Patrick Harvey's Green Party is you believe or you're the enemy. I mean, the people they've thrown out are people who were in the Green Party when Patrick Harvey was still cutting about the River Leven in his shorts. It's extraordinary behaviour, but it's the righteousness, the absolute self-righteousness of these people that utterly dements me. And it's clear, very, very clear from their behaviour since they were chucked out the government, that they are not going to go quietly. They are going to cause trouble after trouble after trouble. And it's to their own benefit. These people have no interest whatsoever in the ordinary people of this country. They really, really don't. And what is astonishing for people who would claim the intellectual high ground is they science deny, but also they democracy deny. How can you possibly put yourself forward as a political representative when you effectively say, vote for me, but if you don't believe what I believe in, I will not govern for you? It's an extraordinary position, and it shows the level of delusion that they live in. And the horror is Nicola Sturgeon gave these people an elevated position that has led them to believe that they are the golden generation and they hold the keys to all the future knowledge, when in actual fact they're utterly barking mad.
Absolutely. Now, Scottish Prism through the days has come up with some great things that we started here, like house jocks started from here, but we've now got a new one, and Lloyd's given us it, political puritanism. I'm loving that. I'm going to be using that. That's going to be getting used left, right and centre. And it's absolutely a fact. It's absolutely political puritanism or even Inquisition, political Inquisition, like the Spanish Inquisition as well. But there's another one, talking of the Greens and whatnot now. In some ways, I'm quite glad that my good old pal Phil's not here tonight, because he and I do not agree on climate change. We have absolutely polar opposite views, but it's a great thing. It's one of the joys of being on Prism. We can have these things and still have a discussion. But Gillian Martin, Techie, you've got to stick this up. I want you, Alan, you've got to listen to this, and then I'll have a wee question for you.
People must recognise that Scotland can reach net zero if we are in a UK that also reaches net zero.
Yeah, let that sink in. Now, I don't believe in net zero either. Even as someone who believes that there's we can do things to affect, the climate. I do believe that, unlike our film. But a Scottish national, member of the Scottish Parliament, Alan, did you ever believe they'd be saying, yeah, but we need the UK doing it? And by the way, this is your starter for 10, because I'm going to give Eva another one in a minute. Would you believe that an SNP MSP would say such a thing?
10 years ago, no. Now, nothing surprised me what they say. I mean, net zero is an impossibility to be done on a simple nation. I mean, you just have to look back nearly 40 years ago, Chernobyl. All that pollution come over and settle down in Scotland. We're still suffering from it because we're still eating contaminated food. There's nothing else we could eat because it's in the soil. And that'll be there for hundreds of years. But, I mean, it really annoys me that they come away with this garbage. And they just have to look back a couple of years ago. Coronavirus. Well, we're in the Union. And it all started in England and come all the way up to Scotland because we had no control over what we can do. And when England's controlling everything that we do, doesn't matter what our parliament decides. Because if England doesn't like it, England will change it. If it's affecting their finances from Scotland, they will change whatever the Scottish Parliament put in place. A border isn't going to change anything. So it doesn't matter whether we're in a union or we're out of a union. Pollution is always going to be there because it's an impossibility for net zero. In fact, net zero is just code for total control because they're trying to control how you run your lives, what you can do, where you can travel to. Well, they're zooming away on their jet planes to discuss how to stop pollution.
Yeah, it's a load of nonsense. I remember we did a show a few weeks ago. I remember talking about, and it showed you we did a global, if you remember, a global map. And Scotland produces like 0.9 or 0.09 of the global pollution. It's a load of nonsense. But here's another one. Now, Eva, you and I are, I mean, you're obviously much younger. You're in your 20s or 30s. I'm not quite sure. But you've been around the SNP since you were a small child. And you've seen all these things now when you think the Margaret McDonalds and the Winnie Ewans and the Margaret Bains and the Dr. Robert McIntyres. Techie, going to stick up Emma Ruddock. This is a second one, Eva, who said that we should keep some kind of union, British Union, even after independence. Now, can you imagine some of those names I've just mentioned to you, even contemplating, even if they thought it, can you imagine them even saying it, I mean, thinking it, let alone ever saying such a thing?
I'm not going to say I feel sorry for the lassie because I don't feel sorry for her. She's over-promoted and underqualified, and I'm really glad that she's not a minister now. And that's got nothing to do with her age. Scotland deserves far better. Emma Roddick was, like me, number one on an SNP list because of a disability. That's how come she became an MSP, because she was a list MSP elevated to the status of minister. And the problem with Scotland, as everybody knows, is the Scots. And what we have here is a perfect example of somebody who ought not to have been in that position in the first place, but was there because of patronage, loyalty, and madcap ideas about what diversity or inclusion or equality should comprise. People of Scotland deserve to have the opportunity to elect representatives who reflect their views, who are not out of touch with their desires, who are articulate and who understand especially the reason why we seek independence. We seek independence to have control of our own resources for the good of the people of this country. We want to get away from the notion that somehow the broad enfolding warm embrace of the strong broad shoulders of the British Union will ever offer any positive benefit to the people of this country. The talk that we would be in any form of union with any other part of the United Kingdom is talk for the days after we've attained our independence and started to get rid of the detritus, the poverty, the want, and all the disadvantages that have been visited upon our country for centuries as the result of our membership of a union. Once Scotland is independent and we are beginning to prosper, we can think at that stage about the nature of the entente or the agreement or the cooperation that we might have with other constituent parts of the United Kingdom as it is at the moment. But that is a conversation for later years. It is not a conversation for now, when all political efforts within the independence movement should be designed to make independence happen.
Absolutely. I am one of those Rishi Sunak extremists, as you all know. I am a hardcore independentista. The only grouping I want to see post-independence was us with our fellow Celts between Scotland, Ireland, and Wales in some kind of grouping. I don't want to see the Anglos. They've screwed up not just our country, but half the bloody world. I don't want them. And I remember reading this story quite some time ago during Brexit, where there was talk about them having going into EFTA, and the Norwegians said, no, we don't want them, thanks, no, they'll screw it up. So I don't want to have anything to do with them, but that's just perhaps me. The thing is, Lloyd, we keep going down these roads where we're finding that these so-called independentist supporters and MSPs and MPs are talking more and more like it could be the British Labour Party.
It's not even as sophisticated as that, Roddy. I mean, that entire article shows a political ignorance of which, had you presented that in a modern studies paper, it would be a fail. That's just a simple, straightforward fact. But, you know, I don't want to get into too much detail about this particular individual because my first dealings with her were back in 2016. All I can say is, since that day, she's been a stranger to the truth from the moment I met her in every possible way. A bit of advice to anyone and everyone still within the Scottish National Party. Next time you get a chance to select or deselect a candidate, take every single candidate who was vetted under the despotism of Sturgeon and get rid of them. Because if you ask them what is the most important thing for the Scottish National Party, they will say to you winning elections. Anyone who says that, who's a member of the Scottish National Party and wishes to be an elected member, should be booted out the party, frankly. The most important thing for the voters of the Scottish National Party, who the members of the party and the elected members are the servants of, is independence. Anyone who steps back from that is not a friend of the SNP voter, or I would suggest most SNP members. Emma Roddick clearly is one of those people. And unfortunately, Gillian Martin has turned out to be exactly one of those people as well. This is what happens when you have a flawed selection process. When the selection process is completely skewed to bring on board the compliant and the downright ignorant. And that's exactly what happened from the moment that Nicola Sturgeon became the leader of the SNP to this date. And I don't see it changing under John, because it's worked very well at maintaining a certain level of discipline. But then again, when you're herding sheep, all you need is a good collie or two. And I think John's maybe got a collie or two. But the real issue here is the newspaper that supposedly is the newspaper for independence supporting citizens, not SNP members, for everybody, has just given a page to someone who frankly shouldn't have been in the Parliament in the first place, who clearly is politically illiterate. And I have to bring it up. In what Parliament in the world would it be possible for someone with a borderline personality disorder to be promoted to a minister, particularly a minister with the equalities brief, when that particular individual has shown themselves to understand science in exactly the same way as the people who believe in a flat earth? The sooner Emma Roddick joins the Green Party, the better it will be for the Scottish National Party. But until the Scottish National Party develops an honest vetting process and gets candidates of quality not stupidity, then we're going to be in this place. And it's a terrible place to be. It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. When I think back to 1999, put Emma Roddick in a room with absolutely any, apart from Nicola Sturgeon and Shona Robison, of the members of the Scottish National Party group in 1999. She'd have been sent home with a flea in her ear instead of elevated to a position which now gives her, in her eyes, because she has a borderline personality disorder, she believes that the world wants to hear everything Emma Roddick's got to say, because whatever Emma Roddick says is fantastically true and enlightening. What a load of bollocks.
I've just been given a wee note here which I need to read out, folks. She said today, apparently, she has a tissue connectivity disorder and the chairs in Holyrood are painful for her to use. This doesn't go out after the watershed, and I would put out some expletive deletives. Unbelievable. I tell you, I think I could have been president of the world sometimes when I see some of these half-wits, not just in Holyrood, but throughout the country. I mean, I could have been a great leader. I've underestimated myself. They're half-wits. They're absolutely half-wits. Here's a bit, I've got to say, this is brilliant. When you hear this, Techie, can you stick up with the new leader, John Swinney? This is fantastic. New SNP leader, where is it? John Swinney said yesterday that Scotland's within touching distance of independence. Your beauty. He told the supporters that the country could be free by 2007. What? We've heard these pish before, Alan, and he's given us the same stuff again. It's a different day, same nonsense. Carrots.
Swinney will never change. I mean, when Swinney took over the leadership of the SNP the first time round, that's when I left. Because we got the nice put in our back. I supported Alec Neil, and right after the election, we got the nice put in our back. So, I mean, I was on the phone many times with Margot MacDonald. Margot decided to let them expel her. I just couldn't be bothered. I just left. But Swinney has always been the same. He says what you want to hear. Publicly, behind the scenes, he's around stabbing everybody in the back. I mean, he said free in 2007. If we'd have put a really good campaign up, we possibly could have been. But you had people like John Swinney around speaking to different press organisations, leaking information out, usually at conference times. And it just showed splits within the party. And the public do not like seeing splits. He is not someone to bring the party together. What his job was is to control the party, bring more control to central ground, and finish the SNP membership's influence within the party once and for all.
Absolutely, I can't disagree with you, Alan. You've nailed it. I mean, it's the same old story, as I say, same shit, different day. Techie, can you stick up Angela Constance, who was talking about sub-postmasters? First question, it's a two-part question, Eva. But let's start with the sub-postmasters. Can you stick that one up, Techie, please?
My message to sub-postmasters, the length and breadth of Scotland, is that this government stands with you. We have introduced a bill today in Parliament. The legislative process will start next week, and we will deliver justice for you. I know that you have waited far too long. I know that lives have been ruined as a result of the actions taken by the Post Office and their use of their tainted evidence. But we will play our part in righting a wrong. It is my plan, with the approval of Parliament, of course, that stages 1 and 2 of legislation will be complete by next week. We will not end our legislative process until the UK bill has completed its passage, and that's because I want to ensure equality and parity for those wrongly convicted in Scotland, so that they have the same justice as other sub-postmasters the length and breadth of the UK.
Are there any ongoing discussions with the UK government then about the progress of their legislation and when they might hope to have finished their journey? So yes, so we are in ongoing discussion, both at ministerial level but on a more day-to-day, week-to-week basis between officials. So we are working together very closely.
There's another one that wants to get Westminster to tell her what to do, Eva. Now, you're in the legal profession. I personally believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, but they were charged and convicted under Scottish law, and it should be what the hell England do, it shouldn't really come into this. And that's not about being an extremist. It's just the fact Scottish law convicted them. It should be Scottish law without any leading from anyone else or any guiding lines from anyone else. Or am I wrong?
I barely know where to start with this, because I think that the Scottish Government needs an investigation, an inquiry into what happened with these prosecutions in Scotland, because the more information that becomes available, it becomes clear that several years ago it was known within the Scottish Prosecution Service that there was a problem, that there was a lack of safety in some of these cases. Now, to get technical about it, the Post Office had status which enabled it to be what was called a specialist reporting agency, so that instead of having to go to the police with a complaint, they could report to the Crown Office instead. They've now lost that status within the last couple of days. It's been removed from them by the Lord Advocate because of all the scandals surrounding these difficult cases. But from the perspective of looking at what our Cabinet Secretary for Justice has done, Angela Constance has been complaining for months that Westminster didn't produce UK-wide legislation to deal with these miscarriages of justice. In the sure and certain knowledge that the Scottish and English systems of prosecution are entirely separate, distinct, and very, very different. So if there was ever going to be a solution in Scotland, it had to be made in, by, and for Scotland. And the bill that is coming before Parliament should have been written months and months ago, if not years ago, when it first became known in Scotland that convictions were unsafe. But this is the hallmark of the years of Sturgeon and Yusuf and Swinney. Too little, too bloody late. Another example of that we've seen this week, which is actually horrific when you look at the detail, is the ongoing problem within Scottish prisons, which are now sadly far more overcrowded than they have ever been. This is something that's been warned about by the Inspectorate of Prisons and by the Chief Executive Officer of the Scottish Prisons Association. In February, the Chief Executive was warning that they were in crisis, but it took another 3 months for Angela Constance to admit that to Parliament. The hard and fact evidence says this. In Scotland, in the last couple of months, an extra 400 people have been admitted to the Scottish prison estate. The system is going to be in meltdown. Barlinnie has capacity of less than 1,200. Today, in Barlinnie, there are more than 1,500 prisoners. There are problems in recruiting and maintaining staff. There are issues surrounding prison transport, which are legendary in the context of errors, mistakes, not turning up, prisoners not getting to courts on time, staff not being there, millions of pounds worth of penalties, contracts running over. It is an absolute and utter shambles. And again, it may very well be a result in part of the legacy of the pandemic, because we had people that were kept on remand whose trials might not take place until a couple of years after the incidents complained of and when they were first lifted. The period of time that folk can stay on remand has been extended and not subsequently reduced. And in addition to this, there's a dearth, as has been said so many times before, of criminal defence lawyers because legal aid rates are so much lower than the rates paid to prosecutors. What's wrong with the justice system in Scotland is it's not run by somebody with a knowledge of the law and a qualification in the law, and that needs to change overnight. Get a lawyer in the job that knows what they're doing, because this shambles shames us all. When law and justice in Scotland have become a laughingstock, which they are now, there is something very seriously wrong, flawed and rotten at the heart of the Scottish system.
It's sadly true. It used to be something to be so proud of. Alan, you wanted to say something on the postmasters.
Yeah, I mean, what's annoying me with this whole scenario is they're taking far too long about it. They're trying to shift the blame. So the Scottish Government are not doing the job they're supposed to be doing. They should get the job over and done with. Then once they've got these people compensated, they should also take into account the amount of people that haven't seen this day who were prosecuted. Because they were prosecuted and they died because they were broken-hearted. They couldn't believe, and they went into mental health issues. These people who are responsible for this should be facing charges of perverting the course of justice, because they deliberately went into court knowing that their computer system was faulty and let these people go to jail knowing they were innocent. Giving compensation to the survivors isn't enough. They need proper justice, and these people should be going to jail.
I agree, absolutely. It's an absolute appalling miscarriage of justice. And I say the same for Luke Mitchell. Would someone please do something about poor Luke? Lloyd, the clock's beating us, but I want to go into one thing. During 2014, Lloyd, we were told how, aliens would land in the meadows and take over Edinburgh, the Russians and the Chinese and God knows who else were going to invade. No one would trade with us. It was a nightmare. The union was so fantastic. Techie, stick up if you could, the homelessness throughout the developed world, and let's see who are the best and who are the worst. Would it be, well, there's a big surprise. 50 and 10,000 people in the UK are homeless. And if you get out to Finland, it's negligible. Norway, who are similar to Scotland without whiskey or decent salmon, it's negligible. But there you go. Up there, 50 and 10,000. The biggest winners are the UK. Another lie by Belts Together, Lloyd. And you owe me a quid, mate.
Yep, another lie from Better Together, but what's upsetting is that here we are some nearly 10 years later, and there's more lies coming out of the yes side than there are out of the no side. But then again, I think some of the lies that the SNP tell are not actually lies. They're just so stupid. They listen and they believe and they accept the pieces of paper that are shoved in front of them by the English civil servants who are currently running the Scottish civil service. Hence their utter and complete failure in every single area that bumps up against that lauded institution, Scots law. They don't seem to understand it in any way whatsoever. The fact that we do have a Scottish government who is a criminal justice social worker and not a lawyer as their justice minister just tells you everything that's wrong. But where are we going to go next? What's going to happen next? Can we find the talent within the SNP, the current group at the moment, for a proper reshuffle that might get us back on track? I don't really see it. I really, really don't see it, which is unfortunate. But we've got to keep our chins up. We've got to believe that there's a possibility of real change coming. And let's use the general election to vote for independence and support Alan's campaign of not my parliament. It's being poo-pooed by all the parties. It's being poo-pooed by those who would see themselves join the gravy bus. And that's an indicator that maybe there's a wee feeling for it out there amongst the real voting public. That's what I think the future is. Not my parliament, independence for independence.
Kirky, I was actually reading that Jeremy Corbyn and 16 other well-known sort of lefties are going to stand as independents for independence. And none of them are as good as our Sally or our Eva. And I'm going to put it in a couple of things. But Eva, you wanted a quick word. We're running out of time on the housing, because I want to come in about a great thing from Murdo Fraser.
Very quickly on housing, 30,000 people are homeless in Scotland every year. And we know that to a large extent, the homelessness problem is historical insofar as we sold council houses and we didn't replace them. We've then had talk of affordable housing, but affordable housing means housing that you buy. What we need is low-cost social housing for folk to rent. And what Scotland desperately needs, and there is no reason for us not to have this, is a national house building corporation. Instead, what is happening is that lawyers such as Mike Daly and folk at the Govan Law Centre and the like are having to raise petitions in court to get people who are homeless actually housed in temporary accommodation. They're doing it every day now. They did 4 yesterday and the day before. These 4 families have now been housed. This ought not to be happening. Spending money on legal proceedings to give people in Scotland in 2024 a roof over their head ought not to be happening. The fact that it is testament to A, the dedication and the understanding and the efforts of the lawyers, and B, the absolute inadequacy of the politicians who don't understand that in a country where we grow trees, as I wrote about the other night, and we need houses. We could build houses with the forestry we grow and kill innumerable birds with one stone.
Hear, hear. We have overrun, because we overrun every week, and Techie's always telling me, keep it to an hour. It doesn't always work out. But Techie, I'm sorry, I'm going to go over a wee bit. Can you stick up with a brilliant piece? There's Sally Hughes, who's a regular on here, one of our Independent for Independence candidates. Now, I know a lot of you, she's attacking Tories. Stick it up, Techie. Here's what my favourite, he's got me blocked, so I had someone had to send me a photocopy of this, or a Photoshop of this. Through the door today, a very professional leaflet from Sally Hughes, the Independent candidate for Independence for Perth and Kinrossshire constituency. Clearly well-resourced and serious campaign. No wonder her name keeps coming up in conversation with ex-NP voters. Folks, this is the time for independence, our Eva, our Sally, our Derek. It's the way forward, and there's a few more hanging about that are maybe going to come forward soon. The last thing I just want to leave you with, when I was growing up, which wasn't yesterday, as you all know, it was left and right politics. It really was. And it was serious left and right. That's gone because they've all merged together now that you couldn't, as we often say, put a credit card between the cheeks of their shach. But nowadays it's horizontal. It's the elite and it's the proletariat versus the elite. It's horizontal. It's not vertical. And we are the proletariat, and it's up to us and the Independents for Independence to get rid of these shysters, as our dear friend Phil would say, these gravy slippers, these carpetbaggers, and let's get independence and let's get people representing the Scottish people properly. And that's what we want to see in this programme, and that's what we want to see in our nation. And that's it, folks, until we see you again, which will be on Wednesday, where my guest will be one Thomas Sheridan. And I've warned him, if he takes the piss out of me about Celtic winning the league, he's not getting back again. Till I see you again, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.